This episode of the Unconnected Filmmaker is all about blood. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to make blood because there's a million recipes online, but I am going to give you some tips on how to deal with blood on the set. Now, if you worked with blood before, you know that there are dozens of ways to get it all over the place. And boy, can it make a mess. Spray bottles, paint, ladles, hell, even squirt guns. You might also need different blood formulas for each effect that you'll be doing throughout the day, and that means lots of equipment too. Generally, it's a good idea to have plenty of mixing bowls, the measuring cups, a portable burner, and different pots that you'll need to mix up some of that nastiness. You might even start feeling like a mad scientist or a witch with all the mixing and experimenting and trying to get things just right. And if you're like me, you'll start experimenting with different formulas for different types of surfaces. Different types of blood go on different things. For example, you might need a sticky blood or a gelatin blood for glass and windows, or for props that are going to be moved around by the actors. Everybody's first blood always seems to be corn syrup and red food dye. This isn't a bad formula, but it's not a good idea to use this outside. It'll attract every insect within a 3-mile radius. And whatever you do, don't use real blood. I know that some directors think that, hey, let's make it as realistic as possible, but here's the sad fact. Real blood gets brown real quick, starts stinking, and can really be horrifying to deal with on a set. So whatever you do, don't use real meat or blood. Those empty water bottles that you will find on pretty much any set you go onto make great containers for the different bloods that you'll use throughout the day. Just label them accordingly so you don't mix them up. You'll also want to make sure that actors know which ones are which and which ones they can actually eat, because for some reason actors seem to like to try to taste the blood. This is okay if you're using corn syrup or candy, but it's not so good when you're using soap. When you're figuring out your blood effects, you're also going to have to consider the things that are around the area. Different fabrics can always be a problem. While it might be easy to get blood off of leather, it's not so easy to get it off of silk or velvet. If you're the effects artist, you are going to be the location owner's worst nightmare. These people will turn into the location police because they've already got it in their heads that you are going to cover their house ceiling to floor with lots of gooey blood that won't come out. And believe me, they're going to be keeping an eye on you all day long. As soon as that red stuff comes out, they're going to start getting really nervous. It's almost impossible to assure them that things are going to be okay. When you're on a set, your hands are probably going to get pretty messy and you're not going to be able to open the bottles that you keep your blood in. For this, I recommend using paper cups. Make sure you mark them clearly and tell everybody which ones are not edible, because trust me, if you don't, somebody's going to try to guzzle a cup of blood. Any furniture or walls or floors that are not going to be in the shot need to be covered with plastic if you're going to be spraying blood around. If you've ever seen the TV show Dexter, you know exactly how this portion of the room needs to look. When you're dealing with blood on floors, if at all possible, put down your own flooring. A piece of cardboard covered with a rug is a great barrier to prevent staining a floor. Whenever you need to use furniture, use your own stuff as much as possible. With beds, cover the mattress with plastic and then put on your sheets and your pillowcase and all that bit. The cardboard trick also works here. Make sure that your actors know what they're in for when you're dealing with blood. Some might be sticky, some might get itchy when it dries, some might be runny. Another thing to consider is getting it into their hair. I know it sounds silly, but it can be a problem for them later on, especially if they have bleached hair, because the blood pigments can get in there and turn their hair pink. Make sure to schedule a little bit of extra time when preparing an actor for a bloody scene. It gives them a chance to get used to the blood, and it also gives you a chance to explain to them that you might be having to reapply it from time to time as it dries. Here's another thing that very few people even think about. Whenever you're going to be having an actor covered with blood, make sure that they know to bring old underwear, because if they're wearing anything fancy, it's going to turn pink. One thing I do is I always keep packages of male and female underwear in my bag, so if anybody's forgotten this, I can whip some out for them. Otherwise, they're going to have to go commando. When you're doing blood effects, make sure that your wardrobe department understands that the blood is not going to show up on dark colors. You might be able to get away with some gelatin blood on a darker color like a navy or a dark green, but black is very, very difficult to get blood to show up with on camera. If the director wants somebody to really stand out as a bloody character, keep it with light colors. Another thing you're going to want to do is keep a stock of towels. You can get towels very cheaply at thrift stores. Grab as many big ones as you can and keep them handy. You're going to need them for the cast who's going to be running to you after the day's over. You're also going to be dealing with a lot of laundry, especially if there are no duplicate costumes and they're not shooting in sequence when it comes to bloody effects. Make sure that you understand how to clean each one of the formulas that you've done for the shoot so you can make sure that everything looks fresh and new for the next day. If the production has decided to shoot with everything in consecutive order, you can keep your bloody costumes the way they are, but dab them if you have any gelatin or anything like that, because you're not going to want that crusting over or attracting insects. One thing you're going to be doing is an awful lot of cleanup. Make sure that you have all your supplies handy, because you might be cleaning up in between takes. If you've got a really, really heavy day with blood, you might be breaking out the heavy artillery. And by this I mean floor cleaners, mops, scrapers, even heat guns or hair dryers in order to loosen up gelatin blood. Here's a word about gelatin blood and bloods that are made with anything that hardens. You can end up gluing an actor to the floor. I know it sounds silly, but I've seen this happen on numerous occasions. The best way to deal with this is to keep the actor calm. If they have a sense of humor, you're going to be fine. But if they're irritable, especially after a long day of shooting, they're going to want to get out of that as soon as possible. The best way that I've found to deal with gelatin blood that's hardened to the point where it's glue is to take a hair dryer on low heat, blow onto it until it loosens up, and then use a putty knife or a scraper to gently remove it. All in all, working with blood, it can be a lot of fun, and you're going to either be the most feared or the most popular person on set. Just make sure that you get things cleaned up afterwards. You want that kind of reputation as being able to get everything spotless and better than how you left it. The location owners will be happy, your director will be happy, and your producer will be downright ecstatic. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Unconnected Filmmaker, and if you found this information useful and want to be notified when the next video premieres, just hit that subscribe button. Or if you have anything you'd like to see an episode on, feel free to comment below. See you next time, and keep those cameras rolling.